The home of jump racing. This is where the magic happens. Feel like a Cheltenham favourite with Paddy Power.
Hello everyone, welcome to Road to Cheltenham. We're delighted to be back in the studio. That's me and Ruby Walsh on my right, and it's after a fabulous weekend's racing. We were both at the Dublin Racing Festival at Leopardstown. It was electric. There was also some very good racing around Britain. We're going to be reflecting on all of it. But first, Ruby, what was your favourite bit of the Dublin Racing Festival?
My favourite bit was probably the noise, crowd, people. I didn't think I particularly missed it until it was back, and then it was wow. And from the start of the first race all the way to Honeysuckle winning, the crowds were magnificent.
The atmosphere watching in the stands was superb, and this point as well. It's been such a long time since I've seen people running, trying to get a vantage point around the winners' enclosure in order to be able to greet Rachel Blackmore and Honeysuckle coming back.
Yeah, it was great to be there to see it, to listen to it, and it's a reception that they both have missed out on and both deserved. And you got the feeling though on Sunday afternoon there was a lot of people there to watch her, and there was a lot of expectation on her delivering, and people really wanted to see Honeysuckle winning.
She tends to deliver 14 times.
She does, in fairness to her, yeah.
And that was superb. I'm sort of down there in the bottom right with my
I just noticed I'm the one standing on the far side not clapping.
And there, ladies and gentlemen, we have the difference between us. Now, let's get on with the analysis, shall we, of what Honeysuckle actually achieved in winning the Irish Champion Hurdle. There were three races run over 2 miles on the same day. Honeysuckle's Irish Champion Hurdle, Sir Gerhard's Novice Hurdle, and Call Me Lyrene's Handicap Hurdle. But there is a key difference that we need to point out before we roll VT here.
Yeah,
really.
There is. Obviously, the second last hurdle is the difference here. Honeysuckle, being the first race, jumps it where it should be. Sir Gerhard, it was bypassed because of the sun, so he has to go out off the track and go round the second last hurdle, and then the handicap hurdle in the bottom right, well, the hurdle had been removed, so they gallop straight through the wings. Now, as we roll it, look, I've read all sorts of times to these races, Lydia. I'm not sure where some of them come from, how some of them tally up. They don't make massive correlation.
No. We've had to do it ourselves, haven't we?
We've put them as close together as we can, and it's not exact, but it's about as right as we can get it. And if you watch the bottom right, Mighty Tom in the handicap hurdle, he bolts forward under Brian Cooper and goes the quickest. Top of the shot is Honeysuckle, and they're going to get to the hurdle second. Mighty Tom is over it, heaven help us, and Sir Gerhard is back in third at this stage. So the handicap hurdle is going quick, but for handicappers to go quicker than graded horses, they're not going to be able to keep it up. He gets to the third hurdle in front, heaven help us, she jams on, and now Sir Gerhard is still a bit behind. But because of that mistake, heaven help us slows, and she runs a slow bend, whereas Sir Gerhard, he runs a quick bend. And although on your bottom left, he's still behind heaven help us, he's caught up on Honeysuckle, and he's pretty much beside her thereabouts. Now the road is a good place to judge it from. Mighty Tom crosses it first. Excuse me, Honeysuckle and Sir Gerhard. Sir Gerhard's just in front of Honeysuckle on the road. Third last hurdle, Mighty Tom is coming back to the field a bit. Heaven help us. But you notice Sir Gerhard is in front of Honeysuckle. Now here's where you see the difference. Sir Gerhard obviously has to run a good bit further than the others to get out around the hurdle. Honeysuckle has to jump it. Now, I should read lots of mathematical equations. I'm not sure how you quantify how much energy is required in jumping and what it takes out of a horse, but definitely gliding through the air does slow them down compared to galloping. So, I don't know, is Sir Gerhard going longer or Honeysuckle jumping? Which is harder? I'm not sure. Do you know any way of equating that?
I don't, but I know boffins out there do so. So I'm going to learn from them and read what they have to say. Yeah,
we will have a look. But obviously she jumps it as Sir Gerhard is going round it, and the handicappers are falling off the back of them now. But they've gone so hard they're going to stop. Sir Gerhard gets to the last just in front of Honeysuckle, and he hits the line a bit quicker than she does. But the disparity of some of the times we'll read are much greater than we're showing you here on the television or are able to show you, because you watch Sir Gerhard is just in front of Honeysuckle, and then comes Call Me Lyrene. And you read the times, there's much bigger gaps.
Yeah, so beware some of the overall times that you've read, because quite a few of them I think are inaccurate. Essentially, the Honeysuckle went quicker in the early stages. If we're doing a direct comparison between her and Sir Gerhard, she was quicker than Sir Gerhard until about the fourth, where they reached parity, and then from there onwards Sir Gerhard was a bit quicker.
Slightly quicker.
Slightly.
Yeah, slightly, but I don't know, it was him running around or her jumping which took more energy. We'll never know.
Okay, so that's the sort of overall framework about how those three races were run. I think you described the pace in the Irish Champion Hurdle as perfectly good enough. Let's have a look. Let's analyse what each of the players in each race did.
Yeah, look, here you have the Champion Hurdle. So Heaven Help Us is going to make the run, and Zana here sits down the inside. Honeysuckle is highlighted on the left, wide like she always lines up. Now, key to this race is Zana here at the first hurdle.
Yeah.
He looked to be the one that would probably finish second. He was the improving 4-year-old now after rising 5. But you can't do what he does at the first. Danny Mullins is keeping to the middle of the track and Heaven Help Us. And Zana here, he misses. Clouts it, pecks, loses his hind end. And to be honest with you, I think he does really well to be second in this race thereafter. Heaven Help Us now, she jams on at the third, and I think that's where this race loses some of its momentum. Because she misses, Danny gives her a chance round the bend till she gets to the fourth hurdle. Now Honeysuckle jumps on the bridle here, and unlike 12 months previously, Rachel Blackmore let Honeysuckle roll at this point of the race. This year she's restraining her. You can see her head is slightly turned to Zana here. She's holding her back to Zana here's boot as they head to the third last. But I think it was more confidence in Rachel. Maybe was she thinking about yard form? I took it as belief in the mare. Jumps to her left there as she always does. We know she's slightly better going left-handed. Second last hurdle, Rachel Blackmore spots a stride, lands behind Zana here, who takes it off, Heaven Help Us. But here is what you always expect from Honeysuckle. Here, right now, off the bend, she just opens up like they're standing still behind her. Echoes and Rain tries to go to Zana here, but he doesn't get by, and Honeysuckle is gone. It's race over now. She gets into the last, pops it, and I think idles from there home. Some people have crabbed it. I don't know. I think she can be ridden slightly more aggressively, and when she's kept seriously up to her work, she can clock a better time. I think Rachel Blackmore has faith in her now, and she's doing enough to win races rather than blow people away.
I think she's done what she had to do here. I don't think she's achieved performances that she was achieving even in this race last year, but particularly in the Champion Hurdle last season. But that isn't to say that she can't.
I agree. I wouldn't say that she can't either.
2 out was quite interesting, I think, because Zana here actually jumped it more efficiently, and Honeysuckle typically a bit more airily, but it doesn't matter because she's much better. Yeah,
she gets a bit of height, but she lands Galopin, and off the bend there's that turn of foot, and it's race over in strides, and that's what really good horses do.
And I also agree with you about that mistake from Zana here at the first. I think it was so significant, not just from whether Zana here was then actually physically able to give what he'd been trained to give. Do you think it had an impact on Jack Kennedy's tactics at all?
It may well have, but I think you're looking at Zana here, who needs everything to go right for him and a little bit, and to go against Honeysuckle to get involved, to keep Echoes and Rain and Sunrise behind him was a good effort.
I thought they'd make it more of a test of stamina. I mean, I know that Honeysuckle, and I know they know that Honeysuckle's a strong stayer at the trip. What do you think that means for tactics in the Champion Hurdle? There are only 14 left in the Champion Hurdle. We had the forfeits this week. That's pretty small relatively. And we'll have a quick look at the betting. On the left-hand side is the full betting. These are Paddy Power prices. On the right, that is the betting without Honeysuckle market. Tehupu's there, who is the stable companion of Zana here. I know they're in different ownership. Tehupu is likely to go. I mean, he likes to go forward. He's a strong stayer at the trip as well, isn't he?
Yeah, but they weren't keen to make the run on him at Limerick. He made it, but he dawdled. The only out-and-out front runner there is Not So Sleepy. So would Zana here go forward and sit behind So Sleepy? I wonder, would they stick a pair of cheek pieces on him, or
Zana here?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or headgear, just to sharpen him. Maybe. I'm not saying he's in any way ungenuine, but I'm talking about maximising his speed early in the race.
You essentially think he's a stayer and he's running in a speed race?
Yeah, I think you want to make it a staying race for him.
Minella Indo is an interesting precedent for that in the King George. Echoes in Rain, out of the Champion Hurdle now, heading for the county, and she's favourite in most lists.
She's in the mares as well, isn't she?
Is she? Right, okay.
Yeah, she's in the mares as well, so see what she got £5 for the other day, so see which race she ends up in.
Okay. Other horses that disappeared at the forfeit stage included, surprisingly, Sharjah. Sadly, we're not going to see him. What's happened with him?
No, he's injured, picked up an injury. The exact length of it I don't know, but no, he's injured. That's why he's out. But look, He's placed in the last couple, and he added to the rest. It was hard to see him winning it, but he added to it.
He definitely did. He was one of the major place players. Had anything happened to Honeysuckle, he would have been with the potential to win.
Instead, it's happened to him.
Yeah. Appreciate it then. Willie Mullins has announced that the horse goes straight to the Champion Hurdle, so he'll be making his seasonal debut in the Champion Hurdle, last year's Sky Bet Supreme winner.
Yeah, and that's going to be difficult. Obviously, my 10 to yours chased home Andy Power on his seasonal debut. I can't think of a winner of the race that won it on seasonal debut, so it's going to be hard for him, but he is potentially the only horse that could possibly challenge her. I'm not going to be as brave as say beater, but and I think looking at his form, he is potentially ahead of the rest of the opposition. And I think myself, I know there's betting without markets and all sorts, but he's potentially the only one that might beat her, could beat her. I think at 5 to 1, he's a crack in each way price.
Ooh! Is this a bet?
I think so. I think it is.
Second bet. You know that you can't. There are horses outside of Willie Mullins' yard, don't you?
Oh, I know that. I actually like to get a return though on what I put out.
We shall see. So you're putting up Appreciate It each way at 5 to 1, which I think you can get on at anti-post terms. So you are taking the risk on anti-post terms.
Yeah.
Okay. Rather than the shorter price no money, no bet. I'm getting confidence.
No bet.
There.
You might as well wait till the day of the Champion Hurdle for that. Okay. Personally.
And it'll probably be shorter. So, yeah, I think the honour of the Champion Hurdle lies on the shoulder of Appreciate It. Obviously Honeysuckle, but in terms of depth for the race, I think that's what I rely on.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is Ruby's bet for the Unibet Champion Hurdle. Next up, the Novice Hurdlers. Right, let's talk about the Novice Hurdlers, shall we? And we've already mentioned in passing Sir Gerhard, and the question really is for Sir Gerhard, which race should he run in at Cheltenham? Should it be the Sky Bet Supreme, or should it be the Ballymore over half a mile further?
I don't think we got the answer to that on Sunday. I thought we saw a horse putting in a really good performance, but his jumping probably raised the questions as to whether he should be going to the Supreme or the Ballymore. First hurdle he puts down and shimmies to his right on Paul Townend, which was a little bit unlike him. At the second hurdle he's much better and he has a cut at it, which he did again at the third. But it's when he gets into the back straight that things start to go slightly askew for him. Fourth hurdle jams on. We didn't see him really doing that at Christmas. Fifth hurdle he doesn't have a cut when he could have had a cut. It's a bit deliberate. Gets in, he should have let fly and jumped that. Now the sixth hurdle after two mistakes then, he's much better, but how many can you miss in the Supreme? Off the bend then jumps the bypass the second last, and the last he absolutely flattens it. But I think the performance, Lydia, is Sir Gerhard with his ears pricked there as he starts to lengthen from three stripe life, and then the gap that starts to appear to the rest, and the gap from the third to the fourth is incredible. Look, we've watched it on the previous montage where we know carrying more weight he finishes just in front of Honeysuckle, flattens the last, but that was more hurdly. I wasn't as worried about that jump as some of the other ones. Now, one theory that was floated about was maybe it was being idle in front and he didn't like making the running, but when you look back to Christmas, that theory doesn't really float because he's made and hurdle at Leopardstown. He went to the first hurdle upsides, but thereafter he was in front.
And jumped pretty well.
He did. You see him here. All right, he's company going to the first hurdle, but he jumps really well. And this is what I was expecting. I had schooled him in the past, but he's in front now. Let's fly at that hurdle, which he didn't do that this week in Leopardstown. And here he is at the crossing the road, gets in close, neat, nimble and quick. I was expecting Sir Gerhard to do that, and I was disappointed he didn't do it because he can do it.
So his jumping slightly regressed on the day.
Instead of progressed, yeah.
Yeah, so there's two arguments for that. One, as you just expressed, which I would actually lean towards, which is that you can't afford to do that in a Supreme. You'll just get torched because there'll be horses going quicker. That mistake, that'll be you toast.
Well, unless you're Shishkin, who made a bad mistake at the first hurdle in the back straight, but that was one mistake.
And that's Shishkin as well.
Yeah, but you saw what one mistake did to his position in that race.
Yeah.
It just, the doors closed and you're just out the back.
So the argument would be, even though would he jump better with the lead in the Supreme? Or would he be better off going up in tripping, have a bit more time at his hurdles in the Ballymore?
Well, he's a relaxed individual, so going up probably wouldn't be out of the question. But when you watch that performance, is he good enough to win the Supreme? If you get him jumping, I think he most certainly is.
Yeah, I think there's no doubting his ability. I did have my heart in the mouth coming to the last. I expected him to make a mistake, which
I wasn't right. What were you worried about?
True, I should have factored that in. Three Stripe Life made the worst error, and then he pulled right away. So I've got no doubt of his ability, and neither does Willie Mullins, seemingly. He's basically saying, I can run him to Gerhard in the Supreme or the Ballymore, and then everything else can slot in around, isn't he? That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, look, and I think Willie believes in him. I know I do. I think he's a hell of a good racehorse, and I think, whatever Willie decides about him will influence the others.
How about the literalists who will point to Colonel Mustard back in third and how far Sir Gerhard beat him as opposed to John Bond beating him at the Ascot with a shorter margin?
We argued last week that John Bond's performance in Haydock was better than people believed it to be too.
Yeah, and well, this one was Ascot, but they're steadily,
I know it was
steadily
Ascot,
run
but John Bond at Ascot was the second coming. He goes to Haydock and people are starting to doubt him. I wasn't disappointed with John Bond in Ascot, and I thought Colonel Mustard could run that kind of race.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between a soundly run race and a slowly run race, really. That's, I think, the only illustration. Right, you have got lots of opinions out there about Sir Gerhard. He's causing a lot of fuss in terms of what is he going to do next. This is the first tweet that we're going to put at you. Both Don Cossack and Tom Dearling essentially have the same point. They make the comparison that we were looking at earlier, Ruby, about the speed that Sir Gerhard went in contrast to Honeysuckle. If we move on to Tom's tweet, we can have a look at that too. And they're using that as an argument to say that Sir Gerhard shouldn't be thinking about the Supreme or the Ballymore. He should just cut to the chase and go straight to the Champion Hurdle, be supplemented. What do you think?
I don't think.
Should we move on?
Move on.
Novices and novices. You've got to appreciate it.
He's put up,
appreciate it.
You have to keep saying the same thing every week.
I'll just get a hologram and press play in future. Let's have a look at the Sky Bet Supreme Novice Hurdle betting. To be fair, Don Cossack knew you were going to say that.
He was right. But he still wrote the question.
Constitution
Tweet
Hills.
Lydia in future, right? Please.
Do better in future, Don Cossack and Tom. Constitution Hill's the favourite, 2-1. Sir Gerhard, 11-4. Dysart Dynamo, the stable companion, 3-1. John Bond, 5-1. Pied Piper's in there. We'll come back to him later on, 8-1. Stateman and Kilcrut at bigger prices. Let's talk about Kilcrut and Stateman. We mentioned them both in the Road to Cheltenham Roadshow at Leopardstown on Saturday night. I was quite taken with Kilcrut's performance, crucially with a tongue tie, given the times and the fact he will run in the Supreme.
Yeah, that's about the only guarantee we have. And he was impressive. The tongue tie definitely helped him, and he has rock solid bumper form from last year. Stateman was well fancied at Leopardstown at Christmas when he fell at the second last. He got the job done with no fuss in Limerick, and look, I've always thought he was a pretty decent horse, so hopefully he builds in that. El Fabiolo unfortunately didn't get to run in Leopardstown on Sunday. He had a small cut in his leg that they weren't happy with on the day, and he had to be withdrawn, but his form got a boost yesterday when Tempo Chapter 2 won. So look, as you said, Lydia, Kilcrut is the guaranteed one to run in the Supreme. I think Stateman's a pretty decent horse as well, and I'm afraid I'm a little bit in the dark about El Fabiolo, but plenty of people in Close Sutton do like him.
Okay, and he's presumably going to have to fit in around the rest now that he hasn't had a chance to strut his stuff at the Dublin Racing Festival.
They are, and they're not going. I can't see Willie running any of his Cheltenham horses between now and Cheltenham. Yeah. So they will have to dot in around it. But look, as you've alluded to, it kind of feels like they'll dot in around what Willie decides to do with Sir Gerhard.
Yeah. With the next in being Dysart Dynamo, what would you do with him? He's a keen horse. I quite like the idea of him going forward in the Supreme. You're worried about him getting home if he pulls too hard? Yeah,
look, it's a debate that has to be had, and obviously until you know that they're all on course and pretty close to the race, you don't have to make any decisions. But I just wonder, I know people argued, or people will say front runners have a great record in the Supreme, but how many of them were keen front runners? I know Classical Dream was possibly one who ended up wanting 3 miles, but who's to see? Look, I don't know. I think forward-going horses can win, or forcefully ridden horses can win the Supreme. I'm not so sure about keen ones. All you need is one horse to take you on, and that bubble is burst.
2 questions for you. In the Supreme, who has the best form right now?
I think form, definitely not Constitutional. I would argue that he has the worst form. Now that could change at the weekend, but probably Sir Gerhard, I think.
Okay. And which of those horses towards the top of the market do you suspect is going to defect to the Ballymore because somebody's going to go, pack, 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 that one looks a bit easier?
I'd say it'll be one of Willie's. I can't see either. Nicky's ducking back, and I think you look back over time, Nicky has no problem running 2 in a Supreme. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of Willie's went the other way.
Okay. It's got to be a third question. So which way would you split them? You personally, not you, the assistant trainer to Willie Mullins.
I think, personally, it's a big release if you can, pressure-wise for the week, if you can win the first. I'd run the ace of that, which is probably Sir Gerhard, and I'd try and hold Dice or Dynamo in the Ballymore.
Okay, all right. Interesting answer. Right. Those are the quick novice hurdlers. Still plenty to debate, and there'll be plenty of movement in both of those markets, the Supreme and the Ballymore, between now and when they are run. We're going to move on to the staying novices. That is how the Dublin Racing Festival started with the Nathaniel Lacey. It was Mind Your Manellas, won by Cocooner and beating the Crooner with Hollow Games back in third.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was a great ride from Danny Mullins. And what you're going to keep looking at here is Manila Cocooner's tail to the noses of the horses behind him, and as his landing speed, Eric Bloodaxe sits beside him there. But watch him at the third hurdle. Even when Manila gets in close, he's still taking a neck out of Eric Bloodaxe away from the stands. A great jump here. And look at the gap open automatically, and Hollow Games back to Manila Crooner. It was jumping that won here, and it's Manila Cocooner in front. His landing speed and how fast his first 2 strides are on the landing side of a hurdle just opens a huge gap. Eric Bloodaxe misses there, interferes with Hollow Games in the red cap, third last again. Another brilliant jump, and look at the gap that kept opening at the back of the hurdles. Hollow Games jumped up to Manila Cocooner at the back of the second last, but because Danny Mullins had gotten so much ground, he was always finding it easy. Manila Crooner missed that one and left himself in a hopeless position. But the interesting thing here was, after the race, Danny was kind of thinking you could come back down a little bit.
I get that.
Willie was fairly adamant he was going up, and look, he's the trainer, and even down to the last, he needs one more jump, and he gets it again and pinches himself another couple of lengths, even by getting in close. He's a fabulous jumper, but it's his landing speed that is worth noting.
He's the perfect vessel for that sort of stop-start pace that Danny was controlling there in that race, which made me feel that Manila Crooner was in the wrong position, and obviously his mistake to out-compounded it. I prefer the runner-up for the task of the Albert Bartlett than I do the winner. Yeah,
and it's very easy to see why. I mean, he's that kind of a horse that's going to be behind the bridle and just always staying on, and with that long run from 2 out to the last, is that really going to suit Manila Cocooner, considering the way he jumps?
That, and I think that would be a concern about him. I'd put up Hollow Games en route in the column to this. I was disappointed. I see.
You want to take him down now?
If I could, I would love to. I'd love to be able to sort of race it, go back through the space-time continuum, and then just get rid of it. But I can't. I've got to leave it there because I'm honest like that. So Manila Crooner has presumably taken over, arguably, as Gordon Elliott's number 1, but they've also got Ginto, of course.
They have, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Ginto. Obviously, he's in the same stud as same colours even as Hollow Games, respective stud. So, do they still split those horses, or do they trust Hollow Games to carry the colours and maybe be a winner? It's going to be a difficult decision for them.
I think Hollow Games can run well in the Albert Bartlett. I don't know whether he can win it anymore. I was disappointed by that. There was some action in this division at Musselburgh on the same day. Bardenstown Lad beat 2, count 'em, rivals in a race that was a crawl initially. And he beat a Gordon Elliott trained runner as well, where it all began there on the left-hand side. Yeah,
and they did go really steady. Lyrical Genius is on his inside, who's rated 117, and it was a daughter behind him even. It was a dawdle for a long way. They quickened up down the straight. Third last, Bardenstown Lad lands up sides on the Brian Hayes, goes on to the second last, and with a pretty good jump there, lands him in front, and he pulls away. I suppose it was the show of stamina, his ability to race off the bridle, that would make you think, yeah, he's a lot of the right credentials for an Albert Bartlett. He stays going, he looks reasonably tough, and he's on the right trajectory. He's won again, got in tight to the, well, half put down and got himself over the last, but it was a decent performance, Lydia, but how strong is it? I don't know.
Yeah, and John McConnell's got a good line in staying novices. He had a couple last season as well, didn't he? But he's got Marla Mission as well. He's run the River Don, and now this one. This winner has got the right profile, I think, Barnstone Lad. But I just feel there are more brilliant horses potentially in the field, and it's just where that experience versus ability kind of pans out.
It just depends. I mean, like, inexperienced horses have won the Albert Bartlett, but they were really, really good horses, as it turned out. The likes of a Manila Indo, that kind of horse, Monkfish. Whereas the tradition would be more the horse with experience. So it'll be interesting to see what way it goes this year.
Let's have a look at the betting, shall we, for the Albert Bartlett, the potato race. Ginto is 7-2 favourite. Manila Crooner is 9-2. There is Journey With Me, who I think on one list might be favourite, and it certainly features as second favourite in some lists for the Ballymore. We're going to see him this weekend. Let's reflect on what he's achieved already. His form looks quite a bit better after the past week.
It does. Here he is bypassing the last hurdle where he beats Kilcrut with Manila Crooner plugging on in third place. So, yeah, this form has taken a boost. He was a bumper winner, point-to-point winner, a huge reputation. He skipped last weekend to go to Naas because he qualifies for the Red Mills Auction Series. He's following the same road as City Island by going there. And, yeah, but I kind of got the impression they were hoping he was more of a Ballymore horse than a
Albert Bartlett. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, he's only once he's run at the weekend, he would only have 4 runs prior to Cheltenham, so I'd be inclined to go to the Ballymore with him if I can.
Yeah.
Of course, the difference with what we just saw there is the tongue tie's since been applied to Kilcrut, and the third, Manila Crooner, the second, has gone up a couple of furlongs in trip, so things have happened.
Yeah, and Manila Crooner has that win at 3 miles, which guarantees you that he's going to stay. That Manila Crooner doesn't have. Journey With Me only has in a maiden hurdle, point, obviously, but that's slightly different. And whereas Bartlett Lad did win at the distance in Ayr or in Musselburgh even as well.
That Crooner thing is a nightmare, isn't it?
We're not used to it, but I suppose if you're a flat commentator, you would say, deal with it, considering some of the names they have to put up with.
That is very true. I'm going to deal with it. Time now for the juvenile hurdlers, and it's all change here. Going into the weekend, we'd had that brilliant performance from Pied Piper in the Finesse. He was potentially going to the Supreme. Now, as a result of Vauban, who beat him, who finished second to him on debut at Punchestown, coming out and beating his better esteemed stable companion Phil Dore in the Spring Juvenile, everything's changed around. What did you make of the Spring? I
thought it was interesting. I must say I was in the Phil Dore camp. I've been really impressed with him all along, and it was what he does here that had impressed me. As the rest of the first scenic look was going to rise in front, but Phil Dore, the grey with the red colours, his jumping is what has impressed me about him, and he's very good here again. Now Paul Townend is just marking Davy Russell, pink colours of Richard Sudan Ritchie's, and Vauban, he's directly behind Phil Dore. But Vauban out to his right a little bit at the first, but that's something we're going to see a little bit more of as he gets to the second. Phil Dore's brilliant and gets a length on Vauban. Third hurdle you're going to see Phil Dore very good, Vauban out to his right, and he's running quite keen. Watch how Paul's hands come up off his neck to try and anchor him. Fourth hurdle again, Vauban very quick, or not Vauban, Phil Dore very, very good at it. The fifth hurdle, Vauban misses this one, runs in, lands a bit, rubs it and doesn't really land Galopin, and he seems to give Phil Dore a length 4 or 5 times throughout this race. But as they run across to the second last hurdle, Vauban goes right, but again Paul just pulls him straight back in, puts Iker Allen in the white cap in the pocket, quickens really well to the last where he goes by Phil Dore, who makes his only mistake of the race and beats him quite readily. I mean, the one who's likeliest to improve from this is Vauban, because he did the most things wrong, and that's jumping wise. So where do you see Phil Dore turning it back around, and all of a sudden you realise why Pied Piper could be going to the triumph? Yes, let's start with the winner. That going out to the right thing doesn't bother me on the new course for the Triumph. I mean, Goshen as good as won it. I think he'll be fine. Don't you? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, I was struck by this from Willie Mullins. Let's have a look at how confident he is post-race.
I mean, he's a skinny prize now, as he's bound to be for the Triumph hurdle. Do you see him being the right type of horse for that particular race?
Yeah, you can get past him it'll be good. It'll be hard to get past him, I'd say.
So that, of course, was Nick Luck asking the questions. I thought that was an unusually bullish answer from Willie Mullins, who's normally a bit more cautious. Fair?
I wondered did he realise the microphone was on.
You think that's uncharacteristic as well, don't you?
Yeah, doesn't tend to hype up his own horses, but he was impressed with Vauban, and I'd say as much looking at his jumping, I think he thinks he can get Vauban better jumping-wise. That
pace was very steady. Essentially, Phil Dorr couldn't go quick enough to make it into more of a test scene. It wasn't going that fast. They're going to want to make, I would have thought, Gordon Elliott, the Triumph to be more of a test of stamina, aren't they? Because afterwards he was still saying that he thought Phil Dorr was the number one, but he backtracked from running Pied Piper in the Supreme and is now saying that he'll run both of them in the Triumph. How do you see the setup of that race panning out if you agree with me that they'll be looking to make it a real test of stamina? Yeah,
they might, but I think maybe they didn't make that a real test of stamina because Vauban had been quite keen in Punchestown behind Pied Piper, and I'd say they were hoping to get Vauban running too keen and then Phil Dorr would stay away from him. That didn't work. But yeah, maybe they will. Pied Piper too can be a little keen. He came from well off the pace in Cheltenham. So, look, the Triumph, Lydia, what the setup of the race, it's too far away to think about the setup of the Triumph.
Okay, let's have a look at the JC. Can you sense the disappointment in my voice? Let's have a look at the JCB Triumph hurdle betting, shall we? Vauban and Pied Piper are 2-1 joint favourites. Phil Dorr 9-2. We'll talk about Dr. Parnassus next, I think, because he won at Taunton on Tuesday. Do you think he needed to improve on his Ascot form to do so?
Possibly, but look, this was 2 miles and 3 furlongs, only as a 4-year-old, and Harry Skelton drops him in down the inside, and he jumps the first hurdle well. You see him going to the second hurdle, he's grand and relaxed, right down the inside, gets in and pops it. At the 6th hurdle on the second circuit, first hurdle, Harry gives him a squeeze, jumps it really well, lands up between rivals, and then around the home turn, down to 2 out in Taunton, which is slightly downhill. Harry spots a good stride on him, sends him at it, he flies it and wins as he likes. You've no doubt about his stamina watching him winning over 2 miles and 3 furlongs. He looks a big, imposing individual, and a good gallop would probably suit him. But I don't see him making the running either. But no. He looks a strong stayer, and
agree.
I thought he was decent in Ascot, and he definitely didn't, I don't know if he enhanced his reputation, but he definitely didn't take away from it.
I agree, he didn't detract from his reputation. OK, if we go back to the backwash of the spring, kind of in reverse orders, Icar Allen, lots of people making a case for him for the Triumph. He jumped appallingly, didn't he?
He did, and I thought he jumped really well on his first start.
Bar the first hurdle.
Bar the first, but a bit like Sir Gerhard, he seemed to regress from 1 to 2 rather than progress. So that's something we'll have to work on.
In 4th, in the yellow, the tide turns for the Boodles, Fred Winter, potentially, for Gordon Elliott?
Yeah, possibly. Again, until you see what ratings and weights they get, it'll be interesting to see what way the Irish horses are treated this year after being so dominant last year.
Yeah, and the tide turn needs to run once more in order to qualify to get a mark. They need to run 3 times for that, and I'm sure there's other fiendish horses that are going to be run by that yard and others that we are yet to fully see. I have put up a bet for the Triumph as a result of the spring. Can you guess what it might be?
You're allowed to put up horses other than William
Mullins. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. I have.
Il était temps.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Say that again?
No.
That was beautiful. Il était temps. Yes. 20-1 in one place at the moment, each way, because I think the Triumph could cut up. And I respect some of the front of the market. I just think that given the way that race was run, he was making his hurdling debut in a Grade 1. He looked all over the place early on. He got better as things continued. He was coming right from the back. The way he finished out was really, really strong. I can see him taking a step forward. Tell me that you think he's going to be campaigned in the Triumph rather than...
Yeah, he will. And he'll run in the Triumph, and he'll probably go back to Punchestown and run the Grade 1 there. And should he win a Grade 1, so be it. If he doesn't, he's still a novice for next season. So that is the way he will be campaigned.
OK. So 20-1 in one place, but you can get 16-1, which I think is also acceptable quite widely. So that's my punt at the JCB Triumph Hurdle. We need to move on to the Chasers now. So we're going to start with the Irish Gold Cup. And Ruby, this was something of a surprise because Conflated run it at a big price. But the reigning Gold Cup champion, Minella Indo, bounced back ran really well.
Yeah, he did. Look, there's the winner highlighted down the inside, conflated, fraud on Kenboy. You know all the regulars that are in this contest, and from the first to the fourth, not much happens. But watch Manila Indo here. He puts down on Robert Power, but he landed Galopin. At Kempton, his mistakes really knocked him out of sync, but it didn't seem to really matter here. Watch conflated there, jumped straight by Kenboy. Like his runs at 2.5 were really evident in this race with the speed he jumped with. But the pace of the race past the winning post, Kenboy, Decidas, Emery, they're not that strung out. They've gone quite steady early into the back straight. Frodon jumps it well. Delta work, Janadil, Keyless, Emery all get a nudge and landing. Celis Emery's at the unseating Sean O'Keefe back there. But your eye is always drawn to Conflated, who seems to be going really, really easy. The 15 fence, that's the 14th actually. Janadil is nudged on landing. Asterion Forlonge is going to miss this one. Gets in a bit deep and rattles it. Went to his left, which is not unlike him. But without being asked, Conflated jumps into the lead. He got in close to that fence, and he still has the power to land himself in front. Cross to the second last. Asterion Forlonge is going to miss again on the left of the shot. And Davy Russell just landed and scooted clear on this horse, and he kept it up down to the last. Davy gives him a squeeze, but the horse doesn't come in the stride he's looking for, but he's able to move his feet quick enough to get himself out of it. Manila Indo keeps going, so does Janadil. Yeah, look, if I had 8 attempts at backing the winner of this race, there was 8 runners, I probably still wouldn't have backed Conflated. No. But it was a good performance, a great ride, but when you watch it, I could see the argument Price-wise was making this morning.
Yes, which you were telling me about earlier, and that is that Conflated should go for the Ryanair. And I agree. I think it was a steadily enough run race, wasn't it? And I thought it was really opportunistic from Davy Russell, the way that he took hold of the race throughout with that really good jump and just used that horse's 2.5 mile speed. Yeah,
but it was just jumping all the way. He jumped like a 2.5 miler against 3 milers. It was really quick, really through the air, and he always was going the easiest.
And Gordon Elliott putting him in the race as well, I think. I mean, that's opportunistic as well, looking at that race and saying, oh, look, they're all much of a muchness. I mean, Asterion Forlonge went off as favourite, for goodness sake. We all went mad for that moment. So, Conflated...
Oh, we all know.
Some of us, everybody but Ruby went mad at that. Well, enough people to make him favourite for the Irish Gold Cup, for good grief. Right, there is Conflated then, who's 8-1 for the Ryanair Chase. I don't see him as having the stamina of the Gold Cup.
I think it's questionable, owner sponsor the Ryanair. Maybe they won't go that way. Maybe they'll want to run in the Gold Cup, who knows. Can he beat Allaho?
No.
Probably not. But there's a couple more in the Gold Cup that could outstay him. And were something, like only one, you should never be afraid of one. Allaho tips up and you train Conflated, you'd be thinking, why didn't we have him in that race?
Well, if he can jump like that at the speed Allaho is likely to go and keep himself in the game, then yeah, he could be a place player, because the thing that Allaho did last year was to just blow everybody's jumping apart.
Yeah, and it looks like Shan Blue is going to go there as well. But yeah, he definitely surprised me, but it was a good performance, but I still think it was a great ride too.
I agree. Janadil, for me, he's just not good enough.
He ran a cracker, travelled well. I don't think there was any real excuse, was there?
No, I don't think so. No. Maybe he's not quite grade 1. He's been quoted for the Ryanair. I just want to briefly go back to Manila Indo, because if there is a Gold Cup horse in that race, I think it is the reigning champion. Interesting that Henry de Bromhead wouldn't be drawn on whether Robbie Power keeps the ride for the Gold Cup. What's your take on that?
I wasn't aware of that. I kind of assumed he would. But that said, it's hard to see Delta work running the Gold Cup the way he's run the last couple of times. Could that possibly leave Jack Kennedy free? Well, that will depend on where Conflated goes, because that would leave Gordon with maybe 1 in the Gold Cup instead of 2, or maybe Mount Ida will run as well. So plenty of balls in the air. I
think she is headed for the Mrs. Paddy Power, you would think. Would they really want Jack Kennedy on Manila Indo against Davy Russell on Galvin?
Would you want the guy on it that won the Gold Cup on it last year?
Well, Henry would. And the trainer of the.
Oh, sorry, you're asking the question if you're Gordon Elliott.
I was.
Do you want Jack Kennedy?
Indeed.
Sorry. I hadn't thought of it, but Robbie Power's a pretty good deputy all the same.
This is a good point, and Henry did make the point that Robbie and Manila Indo got on well, and that the horse comes alive at Cheltenham. You would reasonably expect a better performance, wouldn't you? Because he's got better form generally at Cheltenham, outstandingly better form at Cheltenham than at Leopardstown. That was probably his best run at Leopardstown.
I would think so. It was a better run, maybe. a better run than he's run last year.
Okay, let's talk about Asterion Forlange, shall we, and where he might go next. As I mentioned, there was this sort of collective madness where enough of us decided that Asterion Forlange could win the Irish Gold Cup. Certainly there were some concerns beforehand, and this is my absolute favourite moment of the entire 2 days when Nick Luck asked Willie Mullins before the Irish Gold Cup this.
Have you asked Asterion Forlange about the wind? How does he feel about it?
Wouldn't be his favourite thing now, to be quite honest.
Are you being serious?
I am, yeah. He's quirky enough without having wind going around his head.
So this time it was the wind.
I don't know. Does he stay?
Now, you and Jane were making this argument, weren't you, on the Roadshow? Hope you've watched the Roadshow. Catch it on YouTube if you haven't already, or on our own website. You were making that argument. I think he's worth a go in the Stayers Hurdle myself. It's the new course, and I think he stays well enough for that, personally. I do. I think his problem is winning. You think he doesn't stay? No, right.
I don't know. Is he even a genuine Grade 1 horse?
Possibly not. Possibly not. You mentioned in passing, and we need to discuss the form of Paul Nicholls' yard. It had been highlighted throughout January that so many of the horses were running well below par. Traditionally, that has always been blamed on the flu jab that he gives to the entire yard, and there was a presumption that his form would click back into place as it so often does during February, and that with Frodon and Grenadine going out for the Dublin Racing Festival, that they would run well. They absolutely didn't. So on Monday, looking ahead to this Saturday's Super Saturday at Newbury, he was asked in a press conference about the form and what he thought the reason might be.
We got them on some calcium comag and potassium straight in their feed. And Cliff and I have already got them horses on that. We started on Sunday. We got some last week, just in case. We're suspicious that's probably what the problem is. And sometimes your haylage, the mineral level drops down as the older the hay gets, or the haylage gets. And if you just those two minerals in particular, you end up getting problems. So we're just guessing that's what it is. We're not sure. We're just waiting for the test to come back. Well, we were already covering our tracks, assuming it can only be something like that, because if you saw the horses, as I said, you wouldn't know there was a problem.
So thank you to Newbury and also to Betfair for letting us use that extract from the interview. What was your take on what Paul had to say there?
Look, he's like any trainer. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and it looks like they're exploring plenty of avenues.
Is it a worry? I mean, there's no sign of...
I think they'll turn it around. There's 5 weeks to Cheltenham. They'll turn it around.
OK. So that was the Irish Gold Cup that we were discussing. We've ended up, I think, between us with one genuine Gold Cup chance left from that race. A horse, interestingly, that we've much discussed during the course of the series was left in at the forfeit stage this week, and that is a certain novice, Ahoy Senor, whom we both like. Now, we're going to look into his win at the Towton in greater detail later on, but we've asked the roadies via our social poll this question. So, Ruby, what would you do here? So Lucinda Russell has said, after the horse went at Wetherby, that he's not definitely going to go to Cheltenham, that she might wait until Aintree instead, and that the main aim is the 2023 Gold Cup. So we gave these 4 options. I should have stressed that they are for this season's races, not in the case of the Gold Cup, next season's races. What would you do with Ahoy Senor next?
I'd probably run him in the Brown Advisory and the Mile.
OK, this is the answer that everybody gave. And they agree with you. They think the horse should go to the Brown Advisory. My concern would be about the tight old course, whether he would like it that much. Mildmay came second in. Fewer people keen on throwing the Novice in against more seasoned horse in the Cheltenham Gold Cup. And I just wondered what people would make of a right-handed option at Grade 1 level. And not many people went for it at all. Let's have a look at what people were saying. Dave Harrison, first off, voted for the Gold Cup. He said the field is wide open and he could be hard to peg back if getting a good rhythm up front, which made me think, where's the pace coming from in the Gold Cup?
Santini.
Will he be able to sustain much of one?
He looks about the only front runner in there.
Interesting. That is something for us to discuss later on in the series. Paul McGill thinks that he's more fluent jumping left-handed than right. Have a rattle at the Gold Cup. Nigel Keeling demurred, though. He said he thinks he needs right-handed. He was one of the 3.8%. Be different, Nigel. Who thought that Punchestown was ideal. Scott Rudden said the mild May. He's best going left-handed, keep him fresh and he can win another Aintree Grade 1. There'll be no Galopin de Champs, he assumes. Back to Newbury for the Ladbrokes Trophy and then the Gold Cup next year. Scott's got it all figured out. Yeah, it's absolutely sorted. I agree, by the way. John Sweeney says, if Connections truly have aspirations to win a Gold Cup in 2023, then the Brown Advisory has to be the target. It's the premier trial for novices, and if he doesn't act around Cheltenham or is beaten by Galopin de Champs and Brave Man's Game, they can at least plan a realistic campaign next year. Now, that is a solid counter-argument, I think, to the argument that I was sort of setting out in the column this week. Matt Toombs, who also writes about Cheltenham and is an expert on horse racing, he's pointed out that of Gold Cup winners recently, 8 ran in the Brown Advisory and 1 at Punchestown and none at Aintree. So if you're looking for a good stepping stone to the Gold Cup, the Brown Advisory is it. We'll talk about his jumping in a few moments' time, but that is the concern, isn't it, really, with Hoyce and Ure?
He's a work in progress, a bit of a slow learner, but I think he is learning each day he goes to school.
On the Sunday at the Dublin Racing Festival, Shaka Baswar managed to do what Honeysuckle did, which was turn out again and win his 3rd Grade 1. This was in the Dublin Chase. It wasn't much of a Grade 1, was it, with Grenadine turning up in body only?
Yeah, well, look, Shakin jumped out to make the run, and as we thought he might, and he bounded away down to the first fence, which he jumps really well. Dunvegan, the grey on the left, went with him. Now watch Cashback, he's going to get maybe a foot off the ground here at the first fence as he clatters through it and does well to stay standing. Danny Mullins wasn't happy with that and decided to take some action, but Dunvegan took it off Shakin, but Shakin jumped back upsides him at the 4th fence, down the back then. You always felt Paul was in control. He was slightly high there, Shakin Boursois, if anything. 3rd last fence, this is a really good jump, and he extends the advantage on Grenadine, Dunvegan, Captain Guinness. Dunvegan rallies around his outside of the 2nd last, but he was always in control, and then he quickens down to the last. It's a professional performance, jumps it well, and he hits the line as well as I have watched Shakin Boursois hit the line in quite a while.
Yeah, he ends up putting 12 lengths between him and Dunvegan, who's shown improved form at Fairyhouse. Back there in the background is Tingle Creeker, Paul Nicholls runner running badly. Was that compounded by going around the inside on the 2nd day after the rain had come?
Well, when in Rome, maybe. Follow the Romans.
And the Romans were around the outside. Let's have a look at the betting for the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase. And I suppose the big question is about whether Shakin Boursois can bring his Irish A-game to Britain. He hasn't in 2 goes so far. Obviously, the 2nd time in the Tingle Creek this season, he had a hamstring issue. Shishkin's the favourite at 8-11. Energamen is 11-4. Shakin Boursois 6-1. Nuba Negra at 9-1. 16-1 bar. I was very intrigued by this comment from Willie Mullins about Shakin Boursois post-race. Again, he's talking to Nick and he's talking about how he's changed his training regime since the defeat in the Tingle Creek.
This time I just got him 95% ready, and I think he's probably better at 95% than he is at 100.
That's
because yeah, when I do a little bit more with him, I'm not sure he's able to take it now, and we just leave him probably a shade undercooked, and hopefully we can do that for the rest of the season, because I don't think he's ever brought his best game across the water for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, Sandown there was a problem, wasn't there? So you can forgive him that day. Cheltenham last year, as you say, maybe just a little below par. So would you train him differently into Cheltenham this time?
Well, we'll do what we did here and just train him at 95% or 90%. You know, basically don't gallop him hard, and I think that seems to be the key to him. You know, he was just firing all week for me at home, and every time we did a little bit of work, I just said, don't work him, just let him do what he's able. And Dermot, who rides him at home, does that, you know, and I think it suits him better. He was in much better form coming up here.
I'll be honest, for the purposes of the Champion Chase, that put me off.
Why?
I just feel that we're talking about a horse who's ageing, who I was already slightly concerned about for Cheltenham anyway. I don't think the track suits him best, and it just says to me that there's more of a vulnerability there than, and just because he was able to win what looked like in an impressive way, I think it was a one-sided contest.
Yeah, I think Willie would have probably trained Hurricane Fly a little bit that way too, and but lots of horses as they're getting older, he tends to do probably lesser with them. Keep them fresher, keep their mind sharp, and maybe that's what he's going to do with Shakin Boursois.
The other thing that I thought as a result of the Dublin Chase, and I really wasn't thinking this until I watched the tactics, was Shakin Boursois taking a lead from Dunvegan, not going that quick for a top flight Grade 1. What does that mean for the Champion Chase? Because immediately after last year, Willie's immediate reaction was, OK, they didn't go hard enough at front. And the reaction you saw at Punchestown, where they went hard. I'm sure Punchestown suits him much better than Cheltenham. I'm sure that's the case. But it made me think, is Shacken going to set a strong pace in the Queen Mother Champion Chase? I think he won't, as a result of watching the Dublin Chase.
Yeah, different day, different race. A lot of galloping early, but very little jumping in Leopardstown. Way more jumping early at Cheltenham. So it'll be a different race, and depending on who rides them, what way they approach it. But more jumping early in the race would definitely see Shacken going a bit quicker. Impact
on Energamen as a result of what we've learned from the Dublin Chase?
Not much.
So you're expecting Energamen to...
I'm expecting Shishkin to win the race.
But how is Energamen going to be ridden, though? Loads of people are interested in that.
So whoever's riding Energamen will have to do something different to try and beat Shishkin.
I've got one last question. This is from Graham North at Timeform. He writes a Sporting Life column as well. He wants to know whether Shacken Passoir shows better form in Ireland because the fences tend to be further apart than the quick-fire fences, particularly at Sandown, but also on the old course at Cheltenham. We
saw him there. He's a clean jumper, and I think maybe slightly stiffer fences in Ireland, where everyone has to be a bit cleaner, might suit him.
Whereas you can brush through a bit more in Britain?
Brush more, yeah. You can brush a bit more in the UK, yeah.
OK. I hope that's an answer to your question, Graham. So we've saved what I think is the best for last, and that was Galopin Deschamps' performance in the Ladbrokes Novices Chase. First of all, we're going to have a good look at the race itself, and then we're going to do some time comparisons on Galopin Deschamps. What did you make of this defeat of Master McShay, Ruby?
I thought it was a really good performance, Lydia. I loved it. Really good gallop, French Dynamite set in front, Capadano, white cap on the inside, launches at the first. But I think a lot of horses were under pressure here because of how quick French Dynamite was going. Master McShee on the outside there was a bit slow at the second. This is the first time round. And there's a good spread. You see Gaillard de Menil at the back, the Grey Miss and that. They quicken away from the stands. And look, Capadano gets rid of Mark Walsh there, but I think it was the pressure that they were exerting on Capadano's jumping. Now, Galopin wasn't perfect himself either. Beacon Edge falling there, but I was already switched on here. A little bit to his right, like fraction out to his right, not too bad. Let's Fly here. Paul had thought about sending him sat, and then the horse came himself. But at the next fence, they seemed to be much more on the same page, and he gets in close, which was possibly good to see because he had been plenty brave early in the contest. Really good at the fourth last, crossed to the last ditch. Again, this is the fourth last coming up now. Sorry, clever at that, but really good at the last ditch. Fury Road landed on it. But it was just a succession of what you were saying about horses. French Dynamite's drunk, falling out the back of the shot. Off the bend, the Master McShee's on his tail, but he just gallops relentlessly all the way to the line. And I think when you look at the one going out the back, it just tells you how strong this race was. I think it was a really good performance from a horse on his second start over fences. I think he learned plenty as well. There were one or two wild jumps that he seemed to get over as the race went on. I would love to have seen Capadano and Beacon Edge stay standing, and we could put more of a handle form-wise on it. But visually I thought it was very good.
I don't think we need them. I think it was a fantastic performance in terms of when we sort of compare what he's achieved on times. I think the reason why Capadano and Beacon Edge exited is because, as you said, their jumping was put under pressure. You saw horses not being able to hold their position as a result of that as well. Look how long it takes them to pull up as well, again. Master McShay couldn't hold his position early. Gaillard de Menil was struggling out the back. The two of them came through. Fury Road was making mistakes. His jumping couldn't hold up. Look, he's still going. So the big question is, do you use his natural speed and the way he jumps when he's good to go for the turners? Or do you look at how far he was still going and how long it took him to pull up and go for the Brown Advisory over 3 miles? 2.5 miles or 3 miles, which?
That's the case I've been, I suppose, putting out there for quite a while now. To me, it's his natural pace and jumping is his biggest attribute. Now, I can still say, you can't say he doesn't stay. I mean, look, as you say, how far he's gone to pull up. That'll be a decision for Willie Mullins to make. I know he's a 6-year-old, and people say a 6-year-old's having a wonderful record in the RSA. Funnily, Willie's won it with 2 6-year-olds, Don Pauly and Florida Pearl. On the counter side of that, neither won a Gold Cup. So, I don't know, it'll be a big decision.
It will. I feel like I want him, you're just right as well, you mentioned that. So I'm leaning towards the new course as well, rather than the old course. I think everything is set up for him in the Turners as well. Let's have a look at the comparison between how that race was run as compared with Birchdale, who won the handicap chase later on the card. What conclusion did you draw from this?
To me, it just really shows you the gulf between handicappers and graded horses. Now, obviously, Galopin de Champ and the horses on the left are carrying substantially more weight than the majority of the ones on the right. But look, the handicap goes toe to toe with the Novice Chase for the first mile and a half. As they get into the back straight, you see Galopin de Champ is getting in front of Black Bow. Watch him, he hits the road here now, a couple of lengths in front of Black Bow. But because of the pace the handicappers are going, they start to wilt from here. Whereas Galopin de Champ race doesn't. Third last fence, Galopin has built that lead over big Black Bows jumping it now, and we played up to the last fence. You'll see how far Galopin de Champ is in front of Birchdale, and he's over it. Birchdale's coming in the blue cap. He's still a long way behind Gaillard and Menil. To me, it just shows you if handicappers go hard, how much they have to slow, and how this race is able to keep going. And even when they go by the line, it's what this shot shows you. And if you keep watching Galopin de Champ, I think it's 7 or 8 seconds till Birchdale hits the line. Now as the camera switches in the Galopin shot, you're going to see Master McShee and Gaillard de Menil coming into the shot, standing and walking. Birchdale on your right is starting to pull up. There's Master McShee stopped. There's Gaillard de Menil stopped. Now look at Birchdale. He finished 8 seconds after Galopin de Champ, and he stopped a second or two before him.
Yeah, I'm convinced he's a monster, the horse on the left. Absolutely. Let's compare him. Now, we wouldn't normally do this. Those two races were over course and distance. You know, there are lots of views about what you can gain from this, but I found this interesting. We're going to go from 5 out to the line, Galopin de Champ versus Chacun Pessoir. Now, clearly, Galopin de Champ's gone 5 furlongs further at overall in the race, but we're going to take them from 5 out to the line. It's almost identical.
It is, and look, here they are, 5th last, Galopin Chacun. We know from watching the previous bit of footage we put together that Galopin has gone hard versus the handicap because they're side by side. But it's to be able to maintain that is what's incredible, and that's what Grade 1 horses do. It's the maintaining of genuine pace, and that's what Galopin de Champ does. Alright, Chacun is a second or a little bit more in front of him by the time he gets to the last, but keep watching it to the winning post. Is to run the final split or the final third that Galopin de Champ has run. That's quite remarkable, I think.
Yeah, I think it is too. I mean, it also says that what Chacun Pessoir has beaten, by that far, probably is not quite up to a normal Grade 1 standard. But the main point is to pay a massive compliment to Galopin de Champ.
It shows you two things there.
Yeah, both the two things.
It does. It shows you like what Galopin achieved, but maybe what Chacun didn't.
Yeah, I think so. So, I'd favour going to the Turners with Galopin de Champ rather than the Brand Advisory. I just think in the Brand Advisory, he's up against a horse like Brave Man's Game, who runs at Newbury this Saturday, who is so efficient in the way he jumps. It's made for the Brand Advisory, whereas Galopin de Champ is much more exuberant in the way he jumps, and he'd be up against a horse who's a bit more conservative in Bob Ollinger as well. Yeah,
look, I've said that a couple of weeks ago, Lydia. It's no surprise to me, but it'll be a big call for Willie Mullins to have to make, and it'll be interesting to see which way he goes.
OK, let's have a look at a couple of British horses that he might bump into depending on which way he goes. We've mentioned Ahoy Senor first. Let's have a look at his win in the Towton. Didn't face many horses, went out in front, jumped out to his right quite a few times under Derek Fox, but got straighter at the business end. He
did, but the second fence here, they're dawdling, and he runs right into the bottom, pops up in the air, and off out to his right. Again, third fence, Derek spots one. If that's high and through the air, and it's much nicer. Look, I described them already as a work in progress and a slightly slow learner who's getting better, and you can see that throughout the race. But the slower they're going, the more pronounced the more of a tendency he has to go right. First time round, he took one stride to shorten there, got high in front and not as high behind, and it was through the air, and he got better. See that fence there wasn't the same height, and it's through the air rather than up and over and down, and that was something he definitely improved on. Down to the fourth last, quick, Now he gets in underneath, I think it was about this one, is it? Or else it's the next one he gets in quite close to and pecks. But hind end low there, spectacular. This one, he just gets a fraction higher behind and nods a little bit. That's where he's still learning. But that's what novices, that's why you have novices. That's why they are novices, because they run in races that are slightly less competitive and they're able to learn. And that's what he learned in the Towton. I thought the second ran a decent race. No Hood obviously turned him inside out. But the winner's a hell of a good racehorse who's learning how to jump.
Are you and the rest of the world watching the runner-up there, Noble Yates?
You said it, not me.
He's in the Grand National, but the weights aren't out yet. The winner, does he know enough yet for the Brown Advisory even, let alone the Gold Cup?
Look, I see it differently. And maybe people say, oh, he's old-fashioned or whatever, but to me, he's the novice. Run him in the novice. And it's the room he will be afforded in the novice compared to the Gold Cup. How much closer lads ride, and jockeys, ride conditions chasers to novice chasers. They'll be much more bunched in the Gold Cup than they would be in the Brown Advisory, because a lot of people want a little bit of room on a novice.
But I'm saying, has he even got enough experience? Does he even know enough for the Brown Advisory?
You have to add in that experience under his belt, and I think, yeah, to me, every day has been an improvement for him. OK, Brave Man's Gain is there in the betting third in. I've already paid a compliment to his jumping. We're going to see him again at the weekend. He's running in the race that Denman ran in, but it's changed conditions. It's a handicap now. Yeah, and he used to give lumps of weight away. Novice handicap. We haven't time to go into that.
No, he faces 5 rivals. He should win it. I mean, you know, we're going to learn plenty. I quite like the campaigning, but putting him in a handicap. Anyway, Brave Man's Game, whose technique I like. What is the Nicholls form going to be like? It's going to be a test again this weekend with so many of his key horses running there. We need to have a look at the Turners betting, because obviously Galopin, Deschamps hangs over this as well, but Bob Ollinger is the 4-5 favourite. The horse third in, L'Empresse, was also in action at Sandown on Saturday. He beat Pic d'Orhy, who in the end finished third behind Master Coffee. This was a really good, strong performance from L'Empresse. Everything you'd expect from him, I think.
Yeah, and he's caught her eye a few times. Now, if he has a default, it's to go slightly to his left, but it's very, very slight. I mean, that's literally picking holes. You see him over the first 3 there, the railways, and again at the pond fence here, he goes slightly to his left. The 6th fence, the ditch. Luckily, they weren't jumping it next time round. Mr. Coffee decides that I'm going to demolish that, a bit like something did at Leopardstown at Christmas. Down the hill, Gladiator Alain gets rid of Chester Williams, but watch these next 3 fences. First 2, L'Empresse out jumps Pic d'Orhy, lands a neck to neck in front. He goes in here a head behind, but he's going to come out half in front. But then the third one, it flips the other way. Pic d'Orhy goes from behind to in front. That's just the rhythm of those 3 fences in Leopardstown and at Sandown even, and at the railway, slightly left and nods. But see the power he landed with? Straight into Charlie Deutsch's hands, good at the middle railway, and he obviously where Pic d'Orhy misses, and he comes out a mile in front. And if you can get through the railways the way he's jumping there, he's quick and nimble with his feet, but you're always going to win the race. Second last, spots a good stride and flies it and wins at an absolute canter. Look, you have to take it that all of Paul's are slightly out of form, or are we saying Pic d'Orhy ran to form?
I think I don't think he jumps well enough. I don't think he would have enjoyed being taken on for the lead by L'Empresse jumping like that. Yes, I think the form of the yard was a factor, but he was rated a pound higher than L'Empresse going into that. I cannot see how that happened. I mean, I'm just a massive L'Empresse fan, and Venetia Williams said Turners, so he is in the Brand Advisory, and the way he jumps as well, you'd think he'd be.
I was a fan of him since he won in Ascot, and I like everything he's done since. So, I think he's look for a team that's having a brilliant year as well. Charlie Deutsch and Venetia Williams. That's a horse going in the right direction. Very,
very much so. Venetia Williams had to resign herself that yes, it would be Cheltenham and yes, it would be the Grade 1 Turners after that first ever Grade 1 win. First of many, I'm sure, for Charlie Deutsch. We're going to move on to the 2-mile novices because there was a compulsive viewing race, the Irish Arkle. It was won controversially by Blue Lord, beating the filly Riviere d'Etel. What did you make of it?
I thought it was a really strongly run race. St. Sam, there's Blue Lord, and obviously in the Munir Suede colours, St. Sam ended up making the run. And he misses this one though, gets in close, and he's a bit awkward. Hawthorne Couleur in the Joe Donnelly colours at the back, doesn't get high enough in front here and too high behind. Gravity wins, that happens to novices quite often. And early into the back straight then. St. Sam was really good here, and Riviere de Tel is matching him. Blue Lord, I thought, was struggling with the speed they were going. And he does get high once or twice and kind of dwells in the air, but it's mistakes by St. Sam that brings him back to the field, particularly at he flies this one. The next is the fourth last, I think. Blue Lord looks flat out. St. Sam gets in underneath it. That brings him back to Riviera de Tel. Now St. Sam flies 3 out and gets a couple of lengths on both of them, but again St. Sam misses 2 out. Riviera de Tel jumps to the front and Blue Lord arrives on. Now here you're thinking, which way is it going to go? But the jump at the last from Riviere de Tel, she stands back too far, lunges, goes right and loses a lot of momentum, which allows Blue Lords to get on beside her. Paul Townend then maximises the opportunity that's presented and gets Blue Lord to the line in front. Did it clarify the Arkle picture? I don't think so. I think they could all run in the Arkle, and I'm not sure they'll finish first, second and third, but they could finish in a different order 2 or 3 times.
I think Riviera de Tel would have won without the mistake, obviously, but also without the interference. She'll be £2 worse off in March. I don't think that'll matter. She does go out to her right, but she jumps straight in the Fred Winter. Maybe she might go more right over the larger obstacles. But also, didn't St. Sam have a touch of the third time luckies there, just going too fast for his own good and thereby making mistakes?
A fraction maybe, but it was St. Sam's second run over fences. It was Blue Lord's third, and when he ran an ace, there was 4 of the 10 fences bypassed.
Yes.
Riviera de Tel had a huge experience advantage on both of those horses, and I think that, like a High Senior at Weatherby, those runs are bringing the inexperienced novices closer to the experienced ones.
And so, where do you see St. Sam going? Would he, I mean, I'm assuming Blue Lord will go to the Arkle. Where would St. Sam go? Could he go to the Turners, or would he stick Arkle?
He looks too forward going for the Turners, does he? Possibly the Arkle, and it'd be interesting. Now, I'm not sure. I'm not telling you.
No, you're just going from what you've seen there.
Yeah, what I've seen. And Hawthorne Couleur, he has to overcome that fall, but he does look like he's the option in that he settles. He could possibly go further. Yeah,
for the Turners, but he'd be doing it. Do you think he'd get another run in between now and
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, so he'd be going there on the basis of 1 run and 1 fall, which clearly isn't ideal. Right, we've skirted around what happened at the final fence and perhaps more importantly immediately afterwards in the Irish Arkle. That's because Ruby is going to analyse this.
So Lydia has said we skirted around the finish of the Patrick Warden Co-Solicitors Irish Arkle because we are going to analyse what happened between Riviera de Tel and Blue Lord on the run-in. On your right, Riviera de Tel in the red cap misses the last. Blue Lord jumps beside. Paul Townend spots an opportunity and he immediately goes to get in front of Riviera de Tel. Now the rules do allow you to do that provided you are clear, and you do it because if you start to slow down, the horse you have passed has to change line to re-challenge you. It's clinical, but it's brilliant race riding. That's what jockeys should do, but you have to be clear to do it. From behind, Riviera de Tel, as I said, on the left, Blue Lord on the right. When you watch this angle, it doesn't look like anything really happens, and it does look like Paul Townend is clear of Jack Kennedy when he goes across. But when we play it again from the head on and slow it down from you, it's the movement of the 2 horses' heads that you need to watch. Riviera de Tel misses, clitches the top and lands. That cost her the race. But so too could have this action. Watch her head and watch Blue Lord's. Paul's left hand and his body lean to the left to get across in front of Riviera de Tel, but he has to be clear. Now watch as he goes for his right rein with his right hand to stay in front of her. Watch her head. Up it goes, and again to the side, it's up and back. That means Jack Kennedy has exerted pressure back on the rein as well as to the right, and therefore interference has taken place. Now racing, the rules are different to every other sport. There is a foul there. Possibly professional, but yet the fouled didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Luke Cowan-Dickey got a yellow card playing for England the other night because of a foul he committed, and Scotland were awarded a penalty throw because they assumed Darcy Graham would have caught the ball. No one ever knows, would he have not? It was assumed he would. in racing, we don't assume that the one that got the foul would have won the race. We're different to everybody else, and I'm not sure that's right.
I think it is. I think largely the benefit of the doubt could be given to the winner, but I think should be given to the winner. Even within those rules, you can argue that with an uninterrupted run, the runner-up would have beaten the first past the post, Riviere d'Etel. So if you were the stewards, would you have turned that around, given the rules as they are?
I probably would have, but I also would have done exactly what Paul Townend did. I think to be competitive and to be as good as he is, you have to make those decisions. They're tight lines. He only needs to be another millimetre in front to have done the right thing. And I would be disappointed in Paul Townend if he hadn't done it. And when you lose it, sometimes you do.
I noticed you didn't mention a gust of wind in your evidence there. That was something that Paul Townend relied on in the court of the Stewards' inquiry.
There's absolutely no point in getting older if you can't get wiser.
Yes. So we agree. Riviere d'Etel was the moral winner. Or do we have a moral winner?
Is there such thing?
Yeah, well, we've been talking about them all the way through the series, and you've maintained that there isn't. But in this case, I think this is a moral winner.
Did you get paid morally for backing Riviere d'Etel?
No. Let's have a look at the Sporting Life Arkle betting as a result of that Irish Arkle. We have Edwardstone, a British horse, at the top, 11-4 joint favourite, with Riviere d'Etel at 4-1 and Third Time Lucky at 5-1. One of those, Edwardstone or Third Time Lucky, is going to be a lot bigger as a result of this weekend because they clash against each other at Warwick. Yeah,
and look, it's the wayward lad since we have saw Edwardstone on the track. I was slightly surprised to see Third Time Lucky. It's only 2 weeks since Doncaster.
It is a quick turnaround from the Lightning, isn't it? They're meeting now in the Kingmaker. Third Time Lucky showed something different last time. Was able
different
to
tactics, yeah. Dropped in, showed plenty of pace. Been a fan of Edwardstone's. Be a good race.
Okay, who wins the Arkle?
I think it's open. I don't think we got any conclusive evidence from the weekend. And I said, as we were analysing it, I think any one of the first 3 horses could win it.
Okay, and we're also going to learn this weekend much more from the Kingmaker at Warwick. That will be analysed in next week's show. Thank you for your company for this. If you get lonely or bored, you get 2 columns for the price of 1 this week on racingtv.com/Road To Cheltenham, because I just couldn't stop writing. Just kept typing, just more and more.
You need 4 hours out of your weekend, so.
Yes. Set aside at least 4 hours for this. Thank you very much for your company. Well, mostly for your company. Thank you very much for watching. See you again next week.
The home of jump racing. This is where the magic happens. Feel like a Cheltenham favourite with Paddy Power.